Oh, hey, me again.
I'm still learning how to TikTok. Use this video to stitch yourself. Stitch yourself? Stitch with the best thing a therapist ever told you. Stitch with the best thing a therapist ever told you.
The reason why you over-romanticize him is because the reality of him was not good enough.
Stitch with the best thing a therapist ever told you.
A few years ago, I got out of a very toxic on-again, off-again relationship when I started seeing this really nice guy. Anytime we were together, we'd have a great time. Chemistry was there, really respected him. And then I remember one day having a therapy session and telling my therapist, I don't think it's there for me. Thankfully, my therapist saw what was happening and challenged me and said, okay, can you elaborate on that? I went on to explain that I was at his house for dinner the night before and the energy felt off and I just didn't feel any butterflies and I don't think I had feelings for him. I remember my therapist saying, do you think it's possible you felt peace with him? I wasn't chasing this man, so I wasn't getting those adrenaline rushes and butterflies when he was showing me attention. I was really about to end it with this man over an awkward silence. I decided to keep seeing him because I had a lot of fun with him and I respected him and we wanted the same things and I'm so happy I did. And when it ended, it wasn't because I self-sabotaged it.
Stitch with the best thing a therapist ever told you.
Y'all, this one's so good I had to get up. My therapist taught me about the cup analogy because I was telling her about how I always feel like I'm too much for people. So if you feel like that, you're not alone here. Okay, so there are two types of people in the world. There are people that are a lot, there are people that are not. And most likely, you are surrounding yourself with people that are opposite than you because opposites attract. And we wonder why, when we are the person that is a lot, that we are giving all of us to each other and it's overwhelming them. And then vice versa, they give all of themselves to us and it's not enough. Y'all, the trick isn't to find someone that's opposite of you. The trick is to actually find someone that is the same as you. Find someone that's a lot too, because then you'll never feel like a lot. You'll feel like you're just enough. You were never not enough or too much. You were just with the wrong cup.
Stitch with the best thing a therapist ever told you.
So I grew up in a really abusive household. My dad was really abusive. My parents are divorced now. He's not really in my life anymore. It's fine. But I remember one time I was telling my therapist that I really wanted to have a kid one day because I wanted to raise a child in a really loving and supportive and healthy environment so that I could raise a really healthy child and give them the childhood that I never got, that they deserve. And my therapist looks at me and goes, you can treat yourself with the same love and care and nurture and support that you would treat a child. You can love yourself and talk to yourself and treat yourself with the same love that you would give to your future child. And that literally changed my life forever.
Stitch with the best thing a therapist ever told you.
Just because you understand someone's motivations behind their behavior doesn't mean that that's an acceptable way for you to be treated.
Stitch with the best thing a therapist ever told you.
Okay, so I've learned many things in therapy, but one thing that really stuck with me is one time in my appointment, I was sitting there with my therapist and I was just complaining that I'm being nice and I'm being kind and I'm being thorough and why doesn't this person like me? I am trying so hard, I am going above and beyond and I want them to like me. And my therapist looks at me and says, do you like everybody? And I was like, no, of course I don't like everybody. And she said, so why should everybody like you?
Yourself. Stitch yourself? Stitch with the best thing a therapist ever told you.
Figured I'd answer this while I'm waiting for my wife in the store. Couples therapist. First time we met this individual asked me, Brian, do you think you could get your wife really angry in under a minute? I said, what makes you think I need a minute? We laughed. Looks at her, same question. Do you think you could get him upset in under a minute? She said, probably 4 words. We laughed. He sat back, looked at both of us and said, I wonder, however, if the other person is suffering, if the other person is feeling bad, if the other person is depressed, could you get them back to feeling normal, safe, and secure in under that same minute? If not, why are you together? Fundamentally changed how I view relationships and makes sitting here waiting for her to come back out of the store a little bit easier.
Stitch with the best thing a therapist ever told you.
One time I really liked this guy and I went to visit him and I came home and he ended things and I was sad. I went to my therapist and I told her he doesn't like me, he doesn't like hanging out with me. I was questioning my self-worth. And she said, well, what did he say? And I said, he told me he couldn't give me what I wanted. And she said, I didn't hear him say that he didn't like you. I didn't hear him say that he didn't like spending time with you or that you're not valuable. And she put it like this: I'm looking for a $10 relationship. He only has $5 to give. I can make $5 out of my 10 and settle, but he can't make $10 from his 5. So it's just a transaction that's not going to work.
Stitch with the best thing a therapist ever told you.
Despite what you might think, we're not trying to be happy. Happiness is kind of like sadness. It's an extreme. It's one side of the spectrum. Really what we're trying to achieve is a state of contentment. Rather than striving to be happy all the time, it's this idea that you're just at peace. It's the feeling where you lay down in bed at night and you don't have that little voice in your head telling you that you could have done more. Instead, you just lay down and you think, I was enough. Happiness is what happens when you win the lottery or something. Instead, what we're looking for is just a base state of okay. And since then, I haven't tried to be happy all the time. I've just tried to find a state of peace. And my journey has been better.
Stitch with the best thing a therapist ever told you.
Okay, this one was good. My therapist was like, hey, if you were on a plane and it was crashing and you were with your entire family and the oxygen mask came down, what would you do? And I was like, oh, I'd put my mask on. He goes, okay, but what if a couple other people needed help? Your mom needed help. I'm like, okay, well, I would put my mask on and then I would go help my mom. He goes, why would you do that? Your mom really needs help. And I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to help my mom if I'm dead? Like, let me put my mask on first and then I'm going to go help her. He goes, oh, so you do get it. And I was like, get what? He goes, you understand that you need to help yourself before you can go and help everyone else. He goes, so now you need to apply that in your life. You need to go, you need to worry about yourself, what you need to do for you, and then you go and you worry about what they need. And I was like, well, damn.
Stitch with the best thing a therapist ever told you.
Okay, so what I was told is that if you had a fine relationship with your parents and then it suddenly started going downhill when you reached a certain age, it's because your parents have unresolved inner child work or may have gone through trauma at a certain age. Like say they went through a lot of trauma when they were 12 and now you just turned 12. Now suddenly they're looking at you differently and treating you differently. And it's because it's like being confronted with their past self. So it might seem like they're being resentful to you as their child, but really it's because they're trying to overcome their self-hatred. And when they see their child at the age where they went through a lot of trauma, they are confronted with their inner child work that they never did. And so it's really hard as a parent because they really don't understand why it's happening. But basically it's the fact that they never tried to heal from whatever happened to them at that age. And now they're confronted with a child at that age, and it just leads to toxicity.
Stitch with the best thing a therapist ever told you.
I struggle with negative self-talk, and I once had a therapist tell me that in order to conquer that, I should speak to myself the way I wish someone had spoken to me as a child. So instead of, holy crap, how could I be so stupid? What am I doing with my life? It's, yeah, you messed up. And that's okay, but because you're only human. We can do better next time, but for now, just breathe, because it's gonna be okay.
Stitch with the best thing a therapist ever told you.
I don't know if this is the best thing my therapist ever told me, but it was the most life-changing. I used to tell my therapist all about how I had these fantasies of completely leaving my life behind and going somewhere totally new, you know, shaving my head, changing my name, becoming somebody totally different, cutting off everybody I knew. And she looked at me and she said, what keeps you from killing yourself? And I said, my friends and family. And she said, do you think that maybe these escapism fantasies are actually your suicidal thoughts permeating and telling you to cut off the only thing that is keeping you alive? Do you think maybe that you want to escape so you have a reason to kill yourself? And I went, oh, maybe.